installment entitled Know Thy Section, and it's the first of two in this particular sub-series. And as the subtitle suggests here, mapping the thesis, we are now really moving towards thinking how we can systematically ensure that what we claim matches what we do. And here you can see it, as shown in the previous video, it is these three stages that we're speaking of. The claim on the left, the execution, that is the painting itself in the middle, and then the result on the right. And the point being is that we want to make sure that the claim matches the result. And the action here happens, of course, in the middle, where you're doing the painting. That is what's going to ensure that results and claim match. And so what we're going to do in this video is we're going to pick up from last video where we spoke about thinking more consciously or being more aware of the canvas. We're now going to take it a step further. And the way we're going to do it is by way of this thing right here. Section, or rather sections. And the basic premise here is that in fact we can paint the entire picture by taking it section by section by section. And when I say section, conceptually speaking, I mean the following. Take this straight line over here, and what we'll do is we can divide it into different sections. So here we've divided into 4 different sections, and we can illustrate it like so. But this is not the only way that we could have divided it. We could have also done it like this, in 3 sections. And each section, as you can see, does not equal the other. So they can be unequal. The point being is that here the line is the whole, and we can divide the whole into sections, and we get to decide what those sections are. The only point being is that when you take those sections and put them together, well, what picture are they supposed to create? The whole. That's the crucial thing. And that is the same process that we're going to go through. We know that there's a whole, but we're going to tackle the whole by way of dividing it into different sections. That is the key point. Now, rather than defining what a section exactly is, let me rather explain the kinds of questions that the section needs to be able to answer. So the first is that the section have a location. That's the first thing. So just as we did in the last video, we can actually point at the canvas or your paper and literally identify where that section is. That's the first thing. Second, that section has one and only one takeaway point. That is critical. We're going to see this even more so in the next video. But for now, just think about it as simply, after I have looked at your section, after I've read through it, there are plenty of words that you're using, but at the end of it all, I'm going to walk away with one takeaway point, and only one takeaway point. So that's the second part of the section. And then third, how does that section contribute to the overall painting? Remember, it is a part of the whole. So we want to know, well, what contribution is this part making to the whole? And these are the 3 questions. This is it. This is what the section needs to be able to answer. Now, to illustrate it, just to give you a little taste before we go more deeply into the next video, let me do this by way of this person right here. Let's call it the painting. You can see him looking exhausted in the gym. I think it's fair to say that exhaustion is brought about by working out really hard. It's something that I haven't done in a while, but that's besides the point. So in this case, this is our painting. This is what we want to produce at the end. We're going to imagine that we're facing a blank canvas and then try to paint this picture on top of it. So let's go ahead and do that. So here's the painting, or at least what we imagine we want to paint. And the way we're going to go about it is by way of these 3 sections. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go through each section and we're going to answer those 3 questions that we earlier posed. Location, takeaway point, and contribution to the whole. And for the sake of this video, it's really just to illustrate the function of the section. So you may look at this and say, of course, this is what it is. But just for the sake of this video, I want you to really think about how we can take the whole and divide it into sections. So let's go ahead and do that here. So here's our first section. We're going to ask, just as we did before, well, what is the location of this section? That is, where on our canvas will we place this section? And here we have it. You can now see, think of it as the canvas, just how much space and where precisely we are locating this section. So now we can go and ask the second question. What is the takeaway point? Well, think about this. The takeaway point is not to see any particular hand, to any particular eyebrow, or maybe even the bit of his shirt, right? The point is that while your reader takes in all of these minute details, armrest, all of these kinds of things, ultimately, the one takeaway point you want them to walk away with when seeing this section is this: a person who is overcome by exhaustion. That is it. That is the one takeaway point, that after your audience has finished investigating, looking, appreciating this part of your painting, the point they're supposed to come away with is a person who's overcome by exhaustion. So that's the takeaway point. Now, how does it contribute to the overall painting? Well, it does the following. It conveys the idea of a person being at their physical end, which is the major theme of this painting. Right? You can now see how the painting here, this section alone, is already laying the foundation for the theme of the entire painting. So let's go ahead and move to the next section then. I do apologize, as you can see, almost looks like the person is decapitated. Don't mean to be that brutal, it's not mean to be a horror show or anything. But nonetheless, here again we're going to ask the same question. Where is this section located? We want to think through, how much space do I allocate for this section? Well, now we can see. We can see that we have allocated a lot more space to this section than the previous section. And we want to ask the second question. Well, what's the takeaway point? Well, the takeaway point, let's look at this. What are we seeing? We're seeing someone that looks like a person is laying down and wearing sneakers, wearing socks, shorts. And so the takeaway point I would say is this: a person who is wearing workout clothes. That is the takeaway point. After your reader is done looking at all of the details, the shirt, the color, the socks, the writing, all of it, the takeaway point is to simply say that this is a person wearing workout clothes. And how then does that contribute to the painting as a whole? Well, it suggests, but this is crucial, does not yet confirm that the exhaustion is brought about by intense physical exercise. But this section is this transitioning point. So your audience is first introduced to the idea of exhaustion, and here we see this transition point that's now laying the foundation, telling your reader that perhaps that exhaustion may be related to a particular kind of intense physical exercise. But it doesn't yet confirm it. It lays that foundation. So now let's move on to the third. Here again we ask the location, and I'll spare you the canvas as a whole because you can see it here. It essentially takes up the rest of the canvas, except the one that has been blocked out here. Right? So it actually has quite a lot of space that it commands in the canvas. So then we're going to ask the second question, well, what's the takeaway point? A place where people go to work out. That is it. After your audience looks at this section, that is the takeaway point. Right? The people in the back, the kind of clothes that they're wearing, the weights that you're seeing, the mats, the floor, everything is meant to suggest that this is a place where people go to work out. That's it. That is the takeaway point. How does that then contribute to the overall painting? Well, this section confirms that the exhaustion is brought about by intense physical exercise. So if the previous section suggested it, this one confirms it. So now we can place it all back together, and we see how each section is able to answer the location, the takeaway point, and the contribution. And so together, they're able to make up the entire painting as we see it here. And that is why we want to think about sections, because sections allow us to build the painting systematically. And you notice here that each section has its own sub-argument, the takeaway point. And the crucial thing is to be able to tie that sub-argument clearly back to the whole. So here it is. When we think about sections, we want to think about these three questions. Where is the section located? What is the takeaway point? And how does this section advance your thesis? And this is the point for the video today. To think about sections, because in the upcoming videos, we're going to delve even deeper into this idea of sections and really see how sections build up the whole. So with that, I'll see you next video.